So in today's video, I am going to be doing my NFC South record predictions. Now, before we get into the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's jump right into the video. So the way that I have these predictions set up is I have each team's games broken down really into two categories. I have games that the team will likely win, games that the team has a very good chance of winning, and then I also break it down into the rest of the games, basically the tougher games, the 50-50 games that I think they'll probably lose. So I kind of just wanted to keep it kind of simple. You have a category of games that they'll likely win, and then you have a category of the tougher games. So with all that being said, let's jump right into the video. So starting off first with the Atlanta Falcons. Now the Atlanta Falcons, they really haven't had, I would say, a particularly good offseason, to say the least. They obviously traded away their franchise quarterback in Matt Ryan. So I think when it comes to the quarterback position as a whole, the Falcons, I think, are kind of in a rough spot. Now they did bring in Marcus Mariota from the Raiders, and I do like Marcus Mariota, but he's been a backup the last few years, so it's kind of iffy to see what Marcus Mariota is going to be. They drafted Desmond Ridder, but he's also a rookie, so we don't really know what he's going to bring to the table and the offense for the Atlanta Falcons. So that's kind of a bit of a shaky situation. Offensive-wise, also, they lost Calvin Ridley for the entire season. He's suspended for the entire season, so I think that's going to be a huge hit. Now, there is some positives for the Atlanta Falcons. Kyle Pitts had an unbelievable rookie season, and I think he's going to continue that play. He was a very good tight end last year, basically was their default number one wide receiver, it felt like at times. Kyle Pitts, very good rookie season. And then they also brought in Drake London, so they have some huge bodies on that offensive side of the ball for whoever's throwing the football to those receivers and those tight ends. So offensively, they have two really solid weapons, but the quarterback question is a big question mark for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, if we're looking at the defensive side of the ball, I think that that's a bit of a rougher spot. They had the worst pass rush in the entire NFL last year, so I think that's also going to be a massive hit for the Atlanta Falcons. I still think that their defense is going to be a bit shaky this year. They had, like I said, the worst pass rush in the entire NFL. Now, I do like Arthur Smith, and I think the Falcons kind of overachieved in a way last year, because honestly, the fact that they even finished with a good record last year was kind of even remotely surprising. I mean, it wasn't a winning record, but it was 7-10, so that's better than I kind of expected for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, games that the Atlanta Falcons, I think, could potentially win this year, you have the Seahawks, Panthers, Bears, and Commanders. I think those are games that the Atlanta Falcons have a solid chance of winning for the situation that they're in with the rough spot at quarterback and the rough defense that they do have. But the rest of the games, I really do see them losing. They're probably going to lose to the Saints, the Rams, Browns, Buccaneers, 49ers, Bengals, Chargers, Ravens, Cardinals, and Steelers. And I just think that they have a lot of tough opponents that they have to play. And I just don't think that they have necessarily enough around that team to be a good football team. So overall, I think the Falcons' record will probably be around the 4-13 range. Coming up next, we have the Carolina Panthers. They are also very rough at the quarterback position because they don't like their quarterback, Sam Darnold. And that's been pretty evident because they've been trying to do a lot this offseason to upgrade at quarterback, even though they haven't been necessarily successful at it, especially when it came to free agency and possible trades. You know, Baker Mayfield was in contention for a little bit, but Baker Mayfield never shook out, and Baker Mayfield is still in Cleveland as of the time of me recording this video. So quarterback position for the Carolina Panthers also a bit shaky. They don't like Darnold. They drafted Matt Corral. Again, same situation as the Falcons with Desmond Ridder. He's a rookie. We don't know what he's going to bring to the table and bring to the football field for the Carolina Panthers. Now, I do think they have some solid weapons on the offensive side of the ball, so that's also a good thing for the Panthers. They also have Christian McCaffrey, who I think is one of the best players in the NFL when healthy, so they have that going for them. They did add some pieces in the offensive line in the draft this year, so they have that going for them. And then the defensive side of the ball, there's nothing really to complain about. They had a top 5 defense last year, but even with the top 5 defense that I thought was really good last year, they only finished with a 5-12 record. So the Carolina Panthers, I just think with the uncertainty at the quarterback position, the offensive side of the ball, I mean, it didn't really work last year. They even tried Cam Newton. They were desperate last year. Nothing worked for the Panthers on the offensive side of the ball. And if it didn't work last year, I have a hard time believing that the quarterback position is going to be any good this year. So when it comes to the Panthers and the offensive side of the ball, I think that's still going to give them troubles. It's going to give Matt Rule troubles. And so if we're looking at games that I think that the Panthers could possibly possibly win. You have the Giants, Falcons, Seahawks, and Lions. I think those are games that could be potential wins for the Panthers. But again, I think they have quite a few rough opponents, tough opponents that they have to play with the Browns, Saints, Cardinals, 49ers, Rams, Bucks, Bengals, Ravens, Broncos, and Steelers. And with all those opponents that they have to play, I think that the Panthers will also finish with a 4-13 record. Then we have the New Orleans Saints. This is a team that I think is going to be a very sneaky good team. I really like the Saints, and they were a good football team last year. They were so close to making the playoffs last year through all the mess that they were going through last year with the quarterback position in particular. You know, Jameis Winston, he was playing fine for what the Saints were asking. They were winning games, so the Saints seemed like they were on the right track last year with Jameis Winston as quarterback, and this year they should get him back healthy, ready to go. And even through all the quarterback issues they also had, they had Ian Book, Trevor Siemian, Taysom Hill, all them playing quarterback last year, and even through all that, they had a really good season last year. Again, almost made the playoffs, and I just think this year they're going to be a very good football team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They added to the offensive line in the draft as well. They have 3 great talented receivers, Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas should be back, and they drafted Chris Olave, so Jameis Winston is going to have a plethora of weapons to throw to. So I'm really excited for the Saints offense. The Saints have a very great defense. They were 7th in the NFL last year. They added Tyrann Mathieu to their defense, so the Saints have a very loaded, talented roster, I believe. I think the Saints personally could be one of those teams that you don't want to play every week because they're just a very tough, gritty team on defense. And I think they have plenty of juice on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, you could be concerned about the fact that they do have a new head coach with Sean Payton retiring and Dennis Allen coming in, but they kept it in-house. Everything is still basically going to be the same, in my opinion. I don't think much is really going to change about the Saints just because, you know, keeping it in-house is probably the best option for a team. And I really like the fact that the Saints did that. So it gives the players, it gives the front office, everybody confidence that everything is going to work out perfectly for that team and it's going to stay the same and stay consistent. So if we're looking at games that I think the Saints can win, there's actually a lot more than the other teams, obviously. You have the Falcons, Panthers, Seahawks, Vikings, Raiders, Browns, Eagles, and Steelers. I think those are all games that are very winnable for the New Orleans Saints. If we're looking at the tougher matchup, we have the Buccaneers, even though when it comes to the regular season, they tend to own that matchup the last couple of years. So I do like that in the favor of the Saints. They play the Bengals, Cardinals, Ravens, Rams, and 49ers as well. And with all those opponents, they have some tough opponents as well, but I think they have a very favorable schedule. I think they have a loaded roster with a lot of great talent. And through all that, I think the Saints finish with about a 10-7 record this year. And then the final team in the NFC South, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, obviously, this one's pretty easy. They got Tom Brady back after 40 days of retirement. So any team that has Tom Brady on their team instantly becomes a favorite of any season to win the Super Bowl, no matter how weak or how strong your offense is. And luckily for the Buccaneers, they are loaded on offense, in my opinion. They have a bunch of talent in their wide receiving room. So I think offensively, the Buccaneers are going to be just fine. They did have a rough game against the Rams in the playoffs last year, but through all that, I think they'll be just fine. They almost came back from a 27-3 deficit, so I think the Buccaneers will be just fine this year. I think they're going to play with a bit of a different edge this year. Things might be a bit different just for the fact that Todd Bowles is now the head coach after Bruce Arians stepped up, however you want to look at that. But overall, I think the Buccaneers are still a great team. They're going to be a great football team. They have a loaded offense with Tom Brady as the quarterback. They have a great defense that's been great the last few years. So defensive, and it just got better with adding Akeem Hicks. So defensive side of the ball, the run game especially, or the run defense, I should say, is going to stuff people like it has been the last few years. And overall, I just think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a loaded football team. Now, if we're looking at the start of their season, they do start with this tough stretch right out of the gate. Their first 4 games are absolutely insanely difficult, in my opinion. They start off with the Cowboys, Saints, Packers, and Chiefs right out of the gate. The first 4 games of their season. So they are getting tested right out of the gate. But if we're looking at all the games that I think that the Buccaneers will win, I think for the win, for sure, we have the Falcons, Panthers, Seahawks, Steelers, and Browns. I think they will beat those teams. Now, the list of tough opponents is long, but don't let that discourage you. I still think the Buccaneers will have a really good record. If we're looking again at the tough opponents, we have the Cowboys, Saints, Packers, Chiefs, Ravens, Rams, 49ers, Bengals, and Cardinals. Now, even through all those tough games, that tough stretch to start the season, my final prediction for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just because of how loaded, how talented that team is, I think their record will be 12-5 to end next season. But those are my NFC South predictions. Give me your predictions down below of what you think the NFC South records will be at the end of next season. Give me your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in the next one.